Risks of inaction on climate change. Climate change is having a significant impact on the world today. It is already affecting the lives of millions of people, and it will continue to do so in the coming years. In fact, some scientists have even gone as far as to label this phenomenon as the new normal. But what does this mean for you? It means that there are serious consequences for those who choose to ignore these issues or fail to take action against them. Inaction risks driving our world into chaos and catastrophe, and many experts agree that we must act now if we want to avoid this outcome. The risks posed by climate change aren't just limited to cataclysmic natural disasters either. A lack of action on climate change will also increase the likelihood of extreme weather events similar to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, wildfires, and more. The result? These events will only become more frequent and more devastating over time if we don't take action now. If you are concerned about these risks but want an in-depth understanding of what they are and how they can be mitigated, then keep reading. The risk of climate catastrophe. A number of weather events, such as hurricanes and tornadoes, are becoming more frequent due to climate change. If you're not prepared for a hurricane or other extreme weather event, it could be catastrophic. For example, Hurricane Katrina caused $81 billion in damages and killed 1,500 people. Additionally, floods happen during rainstorms and droughts when there isn't enough rainfall to sustain plant life. These storms can lead to loss of human life and property damage. These extreme weather events occur because the Earth is growing warmer than it used to be. The recent polar ice melting has also been partially attributed to climate change. But what does this mean for you? It means that we're inching closer and closer towards a point where drastic changes must be made if humans want to survive on the planet, without devastating consequences like those mentioned above. Risks to human health and safety. The health and safety risks associated with climate change are, in many cases, more severe than the consequences of inaction. Extreme weather events also pose a significant threat to human health and safety due to their ability to cause flooding, landslides, mudslides, and other types of natural disasters. These natural disasters can leave thousands of people homeless or with catastrophic damage to their homes. In order for humans to survive these extreme weather events and any other disasters that stem from a changing climate, we need to prepare ahead of time and plan accordingly. Building homes that are resilient against the elements is one way we can do this. Risks to the natural environment. The biggest risk associated with climate change is the natural environment. Climate change has brought about many changes to the natural world that have not only made it more unpredictable, but also more volatile. For example, some of these changes include the destruction of habitat and biodiversity. A lack of action on climate change could also lead to an increase in extreme weather events like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, wildfires, and more. As these events become more frequent and extreme due to climate change, they will only cause more damage if we don't take action now. Risks to global food security and supply. Today, climate change is having a serious impact on food security and supply. This problem is predicted to cause considerable global economic losses. As the Earth continues to warm, the range of crops that can be grown in certain regions will decline and the yields will decline accordingly. Another issue is that extreme climate events like droughts and floods are expected to increase in their frequency and severity. These events can cause significant damage to agricultural production, which could lead to increased food prices owing to scarcity. These factors could hamper the growth of economies around the world and even have global consequences for employment status. The risks posed by climate change are multifaceted, but they all stem from a lack of action now on these issues. If you want more information about how this risk affects you specifically, keep reading. Risks to infrastructure and economic productivity. The risks associated with climate change are not just limited to natural disasters, but also to human-created ones. If we fail to take action now, there is a high probability that our economic productivity will decline, and the infrastructure of our world will be irrevocably altered. As energy becomes scarcer and more expensive, a lack of action could lead to a decrease in economic productivity over time. This would result in an inevitable decline in living standards for many people around the globe. This decline could exacerbate violent conflicts as resources become more scarce and competition for those resources increases. At this point, The only thing that can be done is for the world's nations and all individuals within those nations to collaborate in order to reduce the risk of these consequences occurring. Risks to society and culture. Climate change poses a significant risk to society and culture. The consequences of climate change will be felt by the world as a whole, but some populations are likely to suffer more than others. The most vulnerable group is likely to be people living in developing countries that have yet to adapt their infrastructure to the effects of climate change. In these nations, entire economies are at risk as well. Indeed, these issues may lead to an increase in poverty levels. If you care about this issue and want to ensure that it doesn't reach its full potential, then there are many ways you can act. First, it is important for people living in developed nations like the United States and Europe to take action on climate change by reducing their own individual carbon footprint. This means choosing appliances with a low energy consumption rate or buying sustainable goods like organic food when possible. Additionally, cutting down on your own personal emissions will help mitigate the effects of climate change without having to rely on other countries or governmental policies. Climate change presents a huge risk to society, but more importantly, the risks are very real. Without decisive action now, we risk the future of humanity. FAQs. What are the consequences of inaction on climate change? There are many risks caused by climate change. The most obvious example is the rise of sea levels. As the planet warms, sea levels rise. If this continues unchecked, eventually there will be flooding in some areas of the world. This can have devastating effects on human life, as well as animal life and crops. Another risk is the spread of disease. Diseases thrive in an environment that isn't suited to them. Disease can spread much quicker when they're in an environment with sparse population. Climate change is also leading to a rise in food prices and famine in some parts of the world, and they're not even necessarily caused by climate change. Another major risk is the increase in natural disasters. This includes everything from tsunamis to floods and hurricanes. These disasters can lead to mass displacement of people and chaos throughout a region, which puts more lives at risk. Furthermore, many countries depend on fish stocks for food and income, so if those are depleted, people will go hungry. What are the causes of climate change? The risks posed by climate change are becoming clear. We can see the devastating effects that they are having around the world, such as natural disasters and epidemics. The worst affected areas are likely to be the most poor and least developed countries. This is already leading to a large number of refugees. There is a lot that we can do to damage our environment, but we must act quickly before it is too late. We must take action against climate change before it is too late. How can you reduce your personal carbon footprint? One of the greatest risks posed by climate change is the impact it will have on food production. As temperatures continue to rise, global food security and availability will come under threat, which could have a devastating impact on the global economy. The World Food Summit declared that climate change is a threat multiplier that exacerbates the challenges of ensuring global food security and nutrition and transport safety. Furthermore, the Earth is warming at a rate unprecedented in human history, and climate change is already affecting over 200 million people across 120 countries who are facing water scarcity. Furthermore, millions of people are likely to be displaced as extreme weather events such as floods and droughts become more prevalent. The United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, has estimated that there could be more than 50% reduction in global output by 2030 due to negative effects of climate change. This includes a potential decline in crop yields by up to 40%, desertification by up to 50% and reduction in forest cover by up to 50%. Furthermore, poor people bear the brunt of these negative effects because they spend a larger part of their income on food than rich people do, so these negative effects would be most burdensome for them. This, combined with the fact that no country has yet met its 2015 target for reducing emissions sufficiently, means that we must take urgent steps to combat this crisis.